And that's why you should never put your hand in a dolphin's mouth. They are not known as happy sharks. Things you learn. So this is Monday, October 29th, and we're going to get into some poetry and some bellworky stuff. Let's see, from there we have a new little handouty thing that make sure you get from me, which has a bunch of prepositions on it to make Magic Lens easier. If you forget, then boo-hoo to you. You have until Friday to show me your book report book so I can read it down. We're going to go to the library on Thursday. If you have your own copy, just bring it in. And then put this entry into the bellwork side, called ML Halloween. And Charger Challenge. This is coming up on Thursday after school. So if we're on that list, make sure you are good to go. And then for our bellwork, you have 3 sentences. The first one says, the boy is wearing a monster mask. The second one says, I will wear a scary costume for my candy. And the third one says, Mr. Brovicast will have a haunted porch tomorrow. Ooh. And then from here is the same sentences. Might be a little easier for you to read. If you're doing the home version, this is about where you're going to want to pause it. Although do make sure you have to go through there and tell me which ones are the subjects in the sentence. And then also for each verb, if it is action or boring. And then hopefully that helps you out. Otherwise at home, you can hit the little pause button there and then do that and then come back and join us. Jasmine? You cannot. You have a pass? Then I'm sorry, you're out of luck on that one. Probably not a good idea to eat hot things if you have no water with you. We call this a lesson we learn.
Well, I'm not dying.
That's good. I mean, I hope not. I mean, technically we're all dying. I mean, every day you're one closer. Except closer, but still. Anyway, that's enough depressing stuff. Let's get back to here. Let's see. We had our first volunteer, and who was our first volunteer we had for this number 1? Was Seth. So go ahead, stand up. I had to take off my dolphin brace because I couldn't swing the stick very well. On the off chance that mistakes are made. As before, if you feel that they make mistakes, you're welcome to help cover your ears. And this time, if you do make a mistake, it hurts me almost as much as it hurts you because it rattles my wrist, and it is not good. The boy is wearing a monster... Wait. All right. The boy is wearing a monster mask. All right, Seth. Boy. Noun. Okay. Is...
Adjective.
Adjective.
What the heck?
What do you say it is?
Verb.
She says verb.
Yeah.
A verb? You say not verb?
It's a verb.
Then why are you covering your ears? He just changed it to verb. He just changed it to verb.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is correct. Verb. Wearing?
How did I... Whoa.
Whoa, me?
I don't know how...
Just say it.
What's it's confusing you?
Just say it if it's wrong.
It says PR in here for some reason.
So you put PR for preposition.
No.
But there's no prepositions in it.
Pronoun? Adjective.
Adjective?
I don't know what this means.
I don't know. I can't help you on that one either. You're the one that wrote it down. So, are you covering your ears? What are you saying it is, Esrun?
Verb.
She says verb.
Yes.
And nicely done. Monster? Is it noun? I'd say you covered your ears.
Adjective.
He says adjective. It is correct. It is an adjective. It's a describing word. And then mask?
It says PR again.
Who wrote that down?
No. I don't know.
Some random person kidnapped your notebook and wrote down random things? You should watch out for that person. So what's your guess? What is a mask?
A noun.
I agree. Next up, which word in that sentence is our... You're not done yet. You do all the parts.
Oh.
Yeah. No. Learning, right? So which word is the subject of the sentence? Which word is doing all of the action?
For I?
Well, for sentence 1. So which word is doing the action, and that makes it the subject? 3,
I didn't even see that.
2, 1.
Boy.
What's your answer?
It says boy.
It's correct. Good job. Boy is our subject. It is doing all the work in the sentence. Next up is boring or action verb? Is boring. See, for each verb, tell if this is action or boring. So it is an action verb or a boring verb?
Boring.
Is correct. Nicely done. And wearing, action or boring?
Action.
Correct again. Good job, Walden. So Walden's name at the top of this one, so he's officially on our list. And who's our number 2 person?
I want a lifesaver.
Should I get
I will wear a scary costume
I is a pronoun.
for my candy.
Jeez.
So we get to our first, which is I, and you said?
Pronoun.
I can't share.
Correct.
Good job.
Will?
Verb.
Verb. Alright. Where?
Verb.
On fire. Scary?
Adjective.
Alright. Costume?
Noun.
Alright. For?
Preposition.
My?
Adjective.
Okay.
Noun. I.
So what is our sub?
I.
Will?
Boring. Action.
Good job, Lacey!
Okay.
Wow. I'm about to pass out right now.
Whoa.
From excitement? I know.
That's
Who would have
way-
thought English?
I'm thirsty.
Alright, Hall. Mr. Broviak will have a haunted porch tomorrow.
You will?
I will.
Can I?
You missed the whole conversation
I'll look
earlier.
it up, I can't.
I gave out full-size candy bars and a whole conversation while you were gone.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, on Friday?
So good.
No, wait, on today.
Right. Mr. Broviak,
Noun.
now, will
Verb.
have
Verb.
haunted
Adjective.
porch
Noun.
tomorrow.
Adverb.
Let's go.
Apparently we're going to go. Good job. And what is our subject of the sentence? What does all the action?
Mr. Broviak.
Good job. And what it was will, action, or boring?
Boring.
And have?
Action.
Technically you're wrong. It's the first time doing it. You don't always have to have boring and action. We actually have 2 boring words in a row. And so have technically counts as boring, but I'm not going to hold that against you. Almost had that one. So we can add Gabby to our list and write her name down, and Lacey, and go you guys. And we'll have this disappear in just a moment. And the only thing you're going to need out now is the handout that had the poems on it from last week. Logan, on my desk over there. You should be good to go. Yes.
So, wait, you're handing out candy today?
No, on Halloween. This is an American thing. People go around to houses on Halloween. They wear
I
costumes.
know.
Well, you seem confused about how this works out.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were handing out only
On Halloween? Yeah, just on Halloween. Not just like to random kids who show up at my house on every day. That's called a white van you drive around. Has a little sign that says, I have candy. Yeah. For some reason, the police frown on that, but you know how they are. There you go.
I have candy. Please come to my truck.
Thank you.
Mr. Brovia.
Seth,
Can I use this pad?
you can.
Can we see you? Dolphin actually built.
No, I play basketball. I just thought, there's no name on here.
Wait, Mr. Bovia.
Yeah, I actually run a basketball league. Put your name on it.
What
I
happened?
had a basketball game.
Campbell! Yes! What a fun game that was.
I didn't know I'm supposed to say.
I know, I appreciate you being honest. Yeah, I officially committed to it.
Yes.
So,
What happened?
I'm the girls' basketball coach.
You are?
Yeah, I just signed up for it.
For the one team.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin makes us
And some number. 29
Mr.
there.
Brovia,
Sethy?
of what happened, can I still try out?
Oh, from your earlier issues? Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, yeah. Let's see, it's there. And that, and so now the only thing on your desk is poetry thing, and so we get to do some quick poetry learning from there. The pencil might come in handy, really kind of. Depends on, well, it depends if you want to read or not. First off, let's see from where we were before. Martinez Last week, we introduced the idea of stanzas to you. And what is our definition of a stanza? Nice one. Paragraph in a poem. And,
I need the paper.
oh, from last week. Weber, in our poem Caterpillar, how many stanzas do we have?
6.
Nice one. And unlike with short stories, we only got to hear my melodic voice. In poetry, I will take you and volunteering for you guys to read each stanza as we go through. The only drawback is if you volunteer to read, you're going to have to read again tomorrow because it's going to take us 2 days to go through it. So you have to write your name on your paper so you remember which one you do. And if you volunteer for stanza 4, there's a big word in there. If you volunteer for stanza 5, there's a big word in that one too. The other stanzas have pretty easy words, but if you volunteer for those, realize they're the tougher stanzas. So we'll go with volunteer for stanza 1. We'll go student of the week. And then stanza 2, Clary. Stanza 3, Webb. Stanza 4, Herrera. Stanza 5, Sethi. And then stanza 6, Taunty. So write your name next to the stanza that you did. Yes, your stanza 2. I'm proud of you. Go you, Logan. Oh, I'm sorry. On the bright side, we have more poems coming up, roughly a lot of them. So I have another chance to read. It just won't be this first one about a caterpillar. Webb?
You said me twice.
Well, because I meant that Webb. Webb-er. Your Webb-buh. And so it depends on my mood. I apologize. Nah, no, that's the one over there.
Who's student of the week?
Webb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Webb rocked it last week.
Weber.
All right. As we get into it from there. And, all right, Webb. Oh, read it in your best, most melodic I love poetry on a Monday voice. Go for it, Webb.
Under the scoop of honeysuckle, a creeping colored caterpillar. I gnaw the fresh green hawthorn spray. I nibble it leaf by leaf.
2.
Down beneath grow dandelions, daisies. Old man broken glasses of rooks, flat croaking across the lane. I eat and swallow and eat again.
3.
Here come raindrops, helter skelter. I munch and nibble, unregarding. Hawthorn leaves are juicy and firm. I'll mind my business. I'm a good one.
4.
With a cold, tired, melancholy, of those leafy mouse
Not bad.
close by, heat on this lovely spray, and die and dream your ages away.
5.
Some say worms win resurrection, with white wings beating flitter flutter. But wings are or sound sleep. Why should I care? Either way, I'll miss my share.
6.
Under this loop of honeysuckle, a hungry, hairy caterpillar, I crawl on my high and swinging seat and eat as one ought to eat.
Such emotion. Good job, team. 7th period. High five. And then our first stanza to break it down, where it says, under the loop of honeysuckle, a creeping colored caterpillar, I gnaw the fresh green hawthorn spray. I nibble it leaf by leaf away. Way back when we did, before we even get to the poem, your small world projects. We had to interview each other. One of the options in your interview was to do a thing called alliteration. And you had to do an alliteration with your partner's name. Does anyone remember what an alliteration is? Because this poem is full of alliteration. Campbell?
Well, it's like a bunch of words repeating that are the same kind of, have the same start.
Nice one. Multiple words in a row starting with the same sound. This poem has a whole bunch of alliteration in it. Our first example is in the first stanza. What's our first example of alliteration? There you go. Creeping colored caterpillar. And then this thing, do you guys know what honeysuckle is?
Yes, it's the little yellow flower thing.
Not bad. I did not know it was when I was a kid. Until my grandma taught me, but they're called honeysuckle. And there's actually a reason why they're called honeysuckle. I found out when I was going for a walk with my grandma, and we were going through these woods, and she reached over and grabbed this random plant, plucked it off a bush, and started sucking on the end of it. And I was like, Grandma, you're not supposed to do that. She's like, no, dear, these are called honeysuckle. I'm like, I don't care what you call it. I'm supposed to grab random weeds and eat them. And she goes, no. Apparently my grandma grew up in the Great Depression, which is before they had things like candy, and they used to just eat random bush flowers. And so they're called honeysuckle because they have these really long, like, loop flowers that you can pluck off, and the nectar inside, the flower juice, tastes like straight up honey. And you can pluck them off and just suck on the end of it, and it tastes like honey. And apparently when my grandma was a kid, that's what they used to have instead of candy. And she tried to get me to do it, and I told my grandma, it's okay. We have this stuff called actual candy. I don't need to eat your random bush flower. But apparently I've had kids like, I've had that stuff. It's really good. And apparently, yeah, you can just pluck them off, and it just like dribbles into your mouth and just tastes like liquid honey. Mr. Brovicast, honey is? I understand. But it's like a thinner kind of honey. But anyway, it's called honeysuckle, and I was like, all right, sure. I learned about it from my grandma, and I thought she was crazy. I'm not still convinced that she's not. If you don't know what hawthorn spray is, there's clues in the sentence. The speaker gnaws on it, and it's fresh and it's green. Using those clues, what is hawthorn spray?
Grass.
At least something that grows in some way. It's a type of leaf, actually. Hawthorn spray is not what I use from behind my desk when you guys keep standing in front of it. I say go away, you just stand there and I pull it out. That's not hawthorn spray, that's just a spray bottle. Hawthorn spray is a type of plant that looks like it sprays out of the limb. If you had like magic plant making juice and it formed into a leaf, that's what it looks like, and it's called hawthorn spray. Other than that, in our poem, way back to last week, Reeves, we introduced the idea of a speaker in a poem. What was our definition of a speaker in a poem?
Character talking to the audience.
Sorry.
One more time.
Characters talking to the audience.
Nice. So the character in the poem talking to us. In this poem, we have a speaker that is talking to us. And who is our speaker in this poem? And now I'll let you yell out loud, Taunty.
Caterpillar.
Nicely done. We have a caterpillar in the poem who is in there who's eating the leaves. Oh, dang it. Okay, wait. What is it our caterpillar likes to do in this poem? His only activity he does? Now, in the first stanza, it never uses the word eat. So you still have to be able to figure out what he does without using that word. So what words in there help you out?
Nibble.
Gnaw and? There you go. So, nom. Our caterpillar likes to gnaw and nibble. He really loves eating. It's going to be a big theme throughout our poem. And then we get to stanza 2. And it turns out there are dangers in Caterpillar Town. So let's have stanza 2 person read it again, and then I'm going to read it, and then we're going to figure out our dangers in Caterpillar Town.
Beneath grows lines daisies, old man's looking glasses, rooks flat croaking across the lane. I ate and swallowed meat.
Nicely done. Down beneath grow dandelions, daisies, old man's looking glasses, rooks flap croaking across the lane. I eat and swallow and eat again. Ooh, that last word. There's a reason why I pronounce it as again, and not because I'm a fancy lad. Although I am kind of a fancy lad. But there's another reason for it. Why pronounce it as again, as opposed to just being a fancy person? Neb.
Because it rhymes with the word lane.
And we're going to get to that coming up, the idea of rhyme scheme, that anytime you have the word come after it, that it has to then fit that rhyme scheme. So you have lane and again. If it went in the opposite direction, and this line came first, I eat and swallow and eat again, rooks flap croaking across the, how would you pronounce that? Lin. Like, I flap across the lin? That's awkward. Yeah, welcome to poetry. Do you guys know what these things are? Dandelions?
Yeah. The things that you blow.
Nicely done. Now, that's the second form of it. They actually start off as little yellow flowers like that. I had no idea I was going to blow kids' minds when I had to tell them, this is the same thing as that.
Really?
They're the same plant. What happens is it starts off yellow, and then when it's ready to bloom and like spread seeds, it closes up in like this little green thing and sits there for 3 or 4 days, and then reopens, and when it reopens, it goes into white form, and that's the one you go, and then blow everywhere, and then magically, like a month later, there's more yellow flowers everywhere, and you're like, weird, I wonder if the connection is. They're the same flower. Well, not flower, they're weeds.
Why?
But that's the same thing. That right there is a dandelion, and that's the first year I did this poem, and I was like, they're the same flowers. He was like, lies. I was like, what? Like, you're full of lies. I'm like, no. He was like, no, you lie all the time. Like, you can Google it. He was like, Oh my God, it's the truth! I'm like, yeah, they're the exact same things. Special children.
Curious George.
Daisies.
So
You guys know what daisies are? What are?
They're like big flowers. Sometimes they're around ponds.
what?
Sure. The pond part throws me off, but they are flowers.
Dog. That weird dog.
Oh. Tomorrow we'll find out. Oh, you guys are cheering because you're going to miss my class. That's the only assumption I can make. Tomorrow we'll